I always like to start off with my beliefs. I believe that everybody is teachable. I believe that everybody needs a great teacher. I believe that the best teachers encourage us every day. And most importantly, I believe the best teachers always make learning fun. If you believe in those things, I want you to type in an exclamation point in the chat room right now. Come on, exclamation point right now. If you did that, then we are going to have fun today. So I always like to get to know who everybody is. So everybody look into a mirror right now or on the reflection of yourself on your computer screen. And I want you to repeat after me. I am thrilled to be here. You know, and now say it with me. I am looking sharp. Excellent, everybody. Give yourselves a big hand. No matter what you do, you need to remember you are always a teacher and a role model. So now you're wondering, who the heck is this guy? Well, my name is Danny Brassell. My last name is really easy to remember how to spell. It's spelled like Brassell. No, I never took any grief over that as a child. And I'm on a mission to bring joy back into education. I've actually taught all age levels, from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach English as a second language to engineering students at the University of Southern California. I became a teacher because of the movie Stand and Deliver. Have you ever seen that movie? You got to check it out. It's a true story of Jaime Escalante going to Garfield High School in East Los Angeles to teach AP calculus. So I said, I'm going to be Jaime Escalante. So I was originally hired to teach 12th grade social studies in Compton, California. It's a community in South Central Los Angeles. And they switched me from working with high school students to middle school students to upper elementary to lower elementary to pretty soon, instead of preparing students for college, I was coming home with snot marks all over my pants every single day. And the first thing I learned is what works with a 12th grader does not necessarily work with a kindergartner. But what works with a kindergartner works with all age levels. The second thing I learned was perseverance. How many of you have ever been in a negative environment surrounded by negative people telling you what you couldn't do all the time? I mean, one of my old principals, Mrs. Lucifer, she used to barge into my classroom every single day with her permascowl and her foreboding clipboard, and she used to write me up for everything she thought that I was doing wrong. She was killing me. But I had a guardian angel. I was so blessed. I taught at a school where I was the only man at my school. I was the only white person in my school. I taught with predominantly elderly African-American women from the South who all had been teaching for at least 20 years. Well, my mentor was Mrs. Turner. Mrs. Turner had been teaching for 40 years. Mrs. Turner was from Alabama. She believed in two things, discipline and the Bible. When her little ones got out of line, she started reading aloud Revelations to them. And it was Mrs. Turner, this saint, this guardian angel of mine, who taught me a system on how to bring joy into my classroom and build up the creativity of all my students. So hopefully during our limited time together, I'll be able to impart some of her wisdom. So by the end of this presentation, I want to show ways we can wake up the creative curiosity in all of our students. I want to show us how we can provide all kinds of creative choices so that our students stand out among the crowd. And finally, I want to help build up the creative confidence in all of our students so that they're willing to take risks. Are you excited for today? All right, get pumped. So let's jump right into it. So Maria Montessori, attractive woman, once said the most favorable time for a child to learn is when she wants to do it herself. I'd love to see her from the other side. Oh, there we go. Education is not something which a teacher does, but it's a natural process which develops spontaneously in the human being. Translation, we need to learn how to think different. I think a lot of us might be asking ourselves the wrong question. Maybe the proper question to ask is, how can you be less effective as a teacher? Why? The more your students work, play, and problem solve on their own, the better. But here's the problem. For many children, school can not only be tough, it can be completely random. So right now, I want you to memorize these letters in order. I'm going to give you 9 seconds to do that. Go. All right, then I want you to write in the chat box the letters in the order they appear. Do that right now. Impress us all. Let's see if you got it. All right, let's see if context would have helped any of you. How many of you wrote ADG, BEH, CFI? You see on the left, ADG, middle, BEH, CFI. You see, context matters. We don't provide enough context. And so I'm always trying to give teachers, when I'm training around the country, different ideas. And so reading's always been my thing. And I'm always asking myself, how do I take lame stuff and make it interesting? So reading comprehension exercises are usually very drab and boring. So I'm always trying to figure out ways to be creative with the students to help them demonstrate that they've comprehended what they read. So I used to live in Los Angeles, and so most of my friends are unemployed actors that found their calling to be classroom teachers. And so I liberate ideas from them all the time. I never steal an idea from another teacher. I liberate their ideas. So Hollywood Writer, this is an idea where every day I read to my students, and about 3 pages before the end, I shut the book and say, all right, kids, write me the ending. A lot of times kids write a better ending than the author did. Hollywood Movie Star, this is where you'll take a small character from a story and make them a bigger character. You know, sometimes with little kids, that's a little bit confusing to them. So another way I do it with the little ones is I'll say, okay, take two characters from 2 of your favorite books and put them in a book together. So we'll say like Fancy Nancy and Amelia Bedelia in their first adventure together. Shrek and the Stinky Cheese Man in their first adventure together. When the kids like a story, I'll act like a Hollywood producer. I'm like, you like that story, kids? Write me the sequel. So the best one my first graders ever wrote was Goldilocks 2, The Bear's Revenge, which I found personally gratifying because in that story, that child deserved a spanking, and my students gave her a lot more than a spanking in their version. Hollywood Rival, you ever notice that Hollywood comes out with a superhero movie that makes $1 billion? All of a sudden there's 38 other superhero movies in theaters. I mean, it's really important for kids to understand you don't always have to come up with an original idea. Sometimes you can take somebody else's idea and just change a couple of elements. And so, for example, instead of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, it could be Goldilocks and the 3, I don't know, muskrats. And instead of trying porridge, they can be trying, jelly beans, whatever, be silly. And then probably my favorite comprehension activity I do with the students is called Hollywood Publicist. Every day I read to my students, whether it's my little ones or my older ones, I'll read them a story without showing them the cover and without telling them the title. And after I'm done reading, I always ask the kids, draw me a cover, give me a title. You see, what we're trying to do is figure out creative ways to demonstrate comprehension. And that's why it's so important to give kids lots of choices. Here's the problem. Schools often discourage creativity. So I want you to look at the chart and say the color, not the word. Say it aloud. Go. Quick, 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 quick. Some of you probably gave up pretty quickly. See what that's called? That's called the left-right conflict. Your right brain tries to say the color, but your left brain insists on reading the word. You got to understand, this is what it's like for our kids. To a young student, the most basic task can be challenging. People always ask me, what does it take to be a great teacher? There's 2 qualities I've always seen in great teachers. Great teachers have lots of patience. How many of you have ever taught something on Monday and your students show up on Tuesday like they're from outer space? So you teach it again, and you teach it again, and you teach it again. And great teachers have lots of empathy. It's really easy for you and me. We already know how to do it. It's the getting to know how to do it. That's the trick. So let me give you some ideas to build up some more creativity. So this game's called California Jones. I call it California Jones because I live in California. Richard lives in Minnesota, so he'd call it Minnesota Jones. John lives in Virginia. He'd call it Virginia Jones. So basically, you're a good-looking archaeologist that discovers amazing treasures every day. You just have no idea what they are, and you have to tell us a story about them. So let's say in my California Jones Center, I put a staple remover. My dull child that's going to do very well under No Child Left Untested is going to tell me a story about a staple remover. But what else could a staple remover be? It could be an alligator, a dinosaur, if your middle school teachers always say weapon, it doesn't really matter what I say. Middle school teachers always go weapon. It can be a zip popper, an ear piercer, shoelace attire. Get creative with the kids. Uncommon commonality. This is a game where I'll ask the kids to come up. I'll start classifying. So I'll put one kid here, and the students in the room have to figure out how I'm classifying the kids. And if anybody gets it, then I sit in that kid's seat, and they come up and they start the game over. You want to try and get through the whole classroom. So sometimes I'll do like, boys, girls, short sleeve shirts, long sleeve shirts. But the kids, they get very competitive very quickly. So like my little ones would be like kids with single syllable first names, kids with multi-syllable first names. My middle schoolers would be like guys that have done time in the juvie hall, guys that haven't done time in the juvie hall. Metacognition. Think about where do you get your best ideas? Maybe it's in bed, maybe it's driving in the car, maybe it's in the shower. Put these things in your classroom. I mean, I get a lot of my best ideas in the shower. So when my kids can't think of an answer, I'm like, I have a shower curtain in my classroom. I'm like, go take a shower. Because I got it, you know, so make those things available to the kids. Find the pattern. It's really important for kids. Your brain's always searching for patterns. Get the kids paying attention to patterns. So if you did like 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, next number would be 64. We're doing the pattern is squares. You could do holidays. You could do all kinds of different things. And then the second right answer is, if there's one thing I've learned, is there's always more than one right answer. So I'll ask the kids something like, give me some ways to get a fish to stop smelling. So maybe you'll say, cook it, eat it, freeze it, bury it, you know, plug its nose. There's lots of different ways, see? Trying to build up that creativity. And finally, got to build up the confidence, the creative confidence in all of our students. Raise your hand if you ever had one of those days. Raise your hand if you ever need to get pumped up. Raise your hand if you've ever felt overwhelmed. You know, all of us only have 15 minutes with you today, so I wanted to make sure to give you something lasting. So if you just go to freereadingtraining.com, I'm going to give all of you a complimentary copy of my book, Read, Lead, and Succeed. This is a book, I wrote it for a principal who didn't know how to engage his faculty. So I said, okay, I'll write you a book. So every week I give you a positive concept, an inspirational quote, an inspirational story, a book recommendation on a book you should read, but you're probably too lazy because you're an adult. So I also give you a children's picture book recommendation so you can read that in a couple of minutes. You know, we're losing too many great educators, folks. And I'm also going to give you a couple of digital trainings, because really one of my specialties is working with parents, showing them ways to get their kids creative at home. You know, because I believe when you get the teachers, the parents, and the kids all on the same page, that is when you move mountains together. So you'll get all those. Plus, I'll give you one positive email a week for the rest of your life or mine, because we're losing too many great educators, especially in these trying times, folks. You need to stay positive. You know, kids and adults think differently. The teacher says to the parent, the good news is your child has a lot of creative ideas. The bad news is they are all in spelling. But in defense of that kid, English is a nightmare when it comes to teaching spelling. You know, for example, how do you spell fish, everybody? You can type it in the chat. How do you spell fish? Well, it's G-H-O-S, obviously. G-H as in enough produces the F sound. O as in women produces the I sound. S as in sugar produces the sh sound. So how do you spell fish? G-H-O-S. Hooked on Phonics worked for me. I hate their commercials. They say, for Hooked on Phonics, just call 1-800-ABCDEFG. I'm like, actually, if it's Hooked on Phonics, it should be 1-800 You know, it's like the Harvard grad kindergartner study. Harvard did a study, 3,000 Harvard MBA students, 3,000 kindergartners. They gave everybody the same riddle. All the kindergartners got the riddle within 10 seconds, and none of the MBAs from Harvard could figure it out. So I'm going to give it to you right now. Don't type this in the chat box. I want you to see if you can get this. What is smaller than an atom, larger than infinity, greater than God, and if you eat it, you will die? Don't write it in the chat box. I want you, I'll say it one more time slowly for everybody. What is smaller than an atom, larger than infinity, greater than God, and if you eat it, you will die? Okay, now you can write it in the chat box to impress everybody. We'll see if you got it. Right, so the answer is nothing. Nothing is smaller than an atom. Nothing's larger than infinity. Nothing's greater than God. And folks, if you eat nothing, you will die. See, I knew I had a whole bunch of highly educated people here. You got to feed off your students' energy. You got to be a Bert. You know, Bert. Have you ever seen Mary Poppins? Have you ever wonder why Dick Van Dyke, Bert, can't hold down steady employment? I mean, one day he's playing 20 instruments. The next day he's painting on the sidewalks. The next day he's sweeping chimneys. He's trying lots of different things. That's what great teachers do. They try lots of different things. How do you ever expect your students to take a risk if you're not willing to take a risk? You got to go all out every single day. Ask what if. You know, so I'll ask the kids, what if snot was worth lots of money? You know, the kids would be like, oh, kindergartners would be forced to work. People would try to catch colds. The Federal Reserve Chair would urge citizens to pick their noses in bad economic times. We got to encourage creativity with our students. Never say you can't do it. Find out how you can do it, and then decide whether it's worth the cost. If there's one thing human beings have proven, it's anything is possible when they focus. You know, there's two types of people: I don't know versus I'll check and see. Stay away from the I don't knows. Surround yourself with I'll check and see types of people. There's excuse makers and there's problem solvers. I was doing a training with these first grade teachers. And they're like, we teach the poor kids. They got nothing to read at home. My back hurts. I can't stand people like that. I took them on a field trip to Barnes & Noble. We went to the magazine section, went to the travel magazines, took out all these 3x5 cards, helped all the first graders fill them out. 3 weeks later, kids are like, Mark, are you going on the Alaskan cruise or the Caribbean cruise? To you and me, it's junk mail. But heck, if you're 7 years old and you're getting 20 brochures in the mail every single day, you are stoked, man. We got to get our kids pumped up about creativity. So remember this, folks, no matter what you do, you're always a teacher and a role model. And I love the book, The Kite Runner. There's a wonderful phrase. Khalid Hosseini says, children aren't coloring books. You don't get to fill them with your favorite colors. Folks, parents, teachers, our job is to fill our children in with their favorite colors. Every single one of them is unique, and every single one of them can have this incredible creativity if we let them.